please let me introduce Civil Service Chief Operating Officer and Permanent Secretary for the Cabinet Office, Alex Chisholm. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Siobhan. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you all here today. The UK is very proud to host the Global Government Forum Innovation 23 conference, and thank you for travelling to join us here in London. I'm really looking forward, as I'm sure you are, to hearing from the assembled cast of innovation luminaries. Now, I mentioned to a friend I was giving a talk on innovation in government. He asked, "Isn't that an oxymoron?" Before I could reply, he turned the knife a bit more. "Innovators don't work in government," he said. "We go to startups, to labs, big tech. Innovation needs us to move fast and break things. The government machine just won't let you do that." Well, I work in government like most of you, and I see brilliant examples of innovation every day. So naturally, I wanted to protest, and indeed I did. And yet, I had to admit my friend had a point. And that has made me ask again, how can we close the gap between how innovative we ought to be and how much we actually are? And that's the question I'm going to try to answer today. And my answer comes in three parts. First, I'll share some examples of where we do innovate well today, drawn from across the UK government, and mine are going to be COVID-related, but other speakers today will cover the wider waterfront. Secondly, I'll ask what are the constraints to our innovating more? And thirdly, I'll argue that this really needs to change and try to show how we can. So let's look at innovation in government today. Government is sometimes seen as inert and unresponsive. The blob has entered the British political lexicon, and similar phrases in other countries suggest that it's not a uniquely British concern. Indeed, our French neighbours have a nice slang word for a bureaucrat, rond de cuir, a comfy, well-worn leather cushion for those who spend long periods on their backside. So it's been striking to see how the government machine responded to COVID-19. There was no playbook for managing this new and very large threat to public health. The only certainty was that inertia would be lethal and innovation therefore urgent. Developing the COVID-19 vaccines has rightly been celebrated as an outstanding case of brilliantly led partnership between government, industry and academia. Such a task would usually take any number of years of sustained effort. But the UK's Vaccine Task Force was able to identify 7 plausible vaccine candidates, and just 7.5 months after the task force was established, the NHS was rolling out the first of these life-saving vaccines to a grateful nation, and 2 more followed just 4 weeks later. And we saw the same contrast between normal and extraordinary speed in the development of ventilators. When COVID struck, the NHS found itself short of ventilators and couldn't buy them from other countries who faced the same needs. Developing and building a new ventilator model typically takes around 3 years, and the Ventilator Challenge, which adopted essentially the same model as the Vaccine Task Force of industry partnership, rigorous down selection and super-fast process management, had 4 new models approved and 14,000 new ventilators built and supplied to the NHS within 3 months. So these examples do illustrate how quickly and effectively government can act under certain conditions. In this case, dire need, with tens or even hundreds of thousands of lives at stake. So far from being inert or rule-bound or unimaginative, these government units were extraordinarily nimble and innovative in their search for solutions. Both of these examples are innovations as classically understood, breakthrough development of new products. But COVID also showed government producing and harnessing great service innovations. Over many years, HMRC and DWP have been moving their core operations onto modern digital platforms. Tax collection is now largely digital, and the business sector has, for the most part, a hassle-busting machine-to-machine relationship with the revenue. Similarly, most welfare benefits are now paid through universal credit, which was built for digital delivery. And because of these prior investments in digital infrastructure, HMRC, within less than 1 month, was able to reverse the ordinary direction of money flows to provide essential support to over 500,000 businesses through the furlough scheme. And DWP, within 2 weeks of lockdown, have processed nearly 1 million new applications for essential benefit payments, keeping households across the country going. All 4 of these examples drawn from COVID required outstanding leadership and coordination across government and private sector, working at pace under tremendous pressure. But the conditions for success had been laid. In the first 2 examples, by many years of public and private R&D investment and scientific and industrial endeavour, and in the latter 2, by prior investments and innovations in the internal capabilities of government. And this points to the need to build platforms for innovation. And furthermore, in these cases, government actors felt both empowered and impelled to innovate. These 3 factors, long-term investment, empowerment, and a properly recognised and urgent collective need, were the seedbed of success. And all of us who want to see much more innovation in government need to learn to replicate and extend these beyond COVID. Let me take a couple of minutes now on the constraints that we face on innovation in government, setting out why I think government innovates less than the private sector. I want to divide my reasons into 3 categories. The first, perfectly good reasons that have to do with the very nature of our task in government. Secondly, unfortunate but largely inevitable unintended consequences of this. And thirdly, avoidable pathologies that we should seek to change. So category 1, in the nature of government. Maslow, in his famous hierarchy of needs, identified safety and security as the essential foundation of everything else that culminates in full human realization. So however much we might want to move fast and break things at the playful top of the pyramid, the one thing that has to be firm are its foundations. And much what the state does is to provide that foundation. No surprise then that from Thomas Hobbes to modern polling, steady and dependable public service delivery is the top ask of government. What government provides is what we all together require. Government belongs to us, the people. We are pooling our money to invest for our needs. And we delegate execution to the executive, which is obligated to us. The first person plural here is all of us, the citizens. And this act of delegation requires democratic governance and accountability. The iconic founders of Silicon Valley are often characterized as self-appointed and possibly benevolent dictators with attendant shareholder structures, but when the collective good is at stake, governance honed for high-risk innovation is not the right model. And this has knock-on effects on our organizational culture. We cannot accommodate the Randy O'Neill visionaries who like to break things before breakfast. Change in government must work through persuasion by aligning and coordinating the energies and behaviours of many, many colleagues and stakeholders. So we do encourage idiosyncratic and original thinkers to join us inside government, but we cannot be a space of unilateral freedom for the persuasive tech profit that venture capital loves to back. Instead, we need to be prudent, accountable, collaborative, all good qualities, but it takes management creativity to make them innovation friendly. Category 2, these unfortunate and unavoidable consequences, particularly the lack of competition. If need is the mother of invention, then fear of competition is very often its stern father. Competition has been found to be the key driver of innovation and productivity in market contexts. Yet by our very nature as being the agents for the inescapably collective, the public and social good, we in government typically do not face true competition, even if we do, of course, compete pretty fiercely in our internal debates over resource. In respect of the state, we are one country, one collective, and our core task is to provide the inescapably public goods we need as citizens. The adrenaline of the fear of being toppled cannot therefore be very powerful in motivating the state, that great and inescapable natural monopoly. So that's probably unavoidable, but there are some avoidable pathologies. And these are ones where we have allowed ourselves to be turned into warm, and not to say tepid, beds of innovation, and where we need to look to turn up the heat. Now, everyone here is going to have their own thoughts and examples. You'll hear many during the day of where we can be more innovative. But the three factors that I think will be most important are really the reverse of the success factors that I described earlier in our response to COVID. The relative success of government's response to COVID, through vaccines, through ventilators, through furlough and universal credit, depended on long-term investment, empowerment, and urgent and commonly recognised collective need. And these are the key factors that I think are vital for future innovation as well. Taking each in turn. Long-term investment. Government does a lot of long-term investment. In the UK, we published every year the pipeline for major capital investments. And in 2021, this totals £650 billion in planned spending over the next 10 years. And we have projects with the same year paybacks and others only back in the money after a decade or more. But it is a plain truth that many parts of government depend on yearly funding of uncertain magnitude and focus. And the capacity to fund new projects can get squeezed out by the pressure to meet immediate service requirements or to absorb unplanned new pressures. Although we now have and welcome the Shared Outcomes Fund, the vast bulk of funding continues to be allocated to specific institutions, departments and public bodies, even though more and more opportunities and challenges across government in scale and scope. There is no single silver bullet solution here, and money is likely to remain tight for multiple reasons, requiring rigorous prioritization. And yes, unplanned but essential claims in the public purse will continue to come in, and it does help to have somebody clearly responsible for how money is used. But I do think in vaccines and ventilators, we saw how rigorous VC-style winnowing allowed us to identify plausible winners, which were then funded through to successful delivery. And in furlough and universal credit, we have seen how modern digital platforms can give even huge and ancient institutions the nimbleness of youth. In all four of these cases, a higher proportion of available resources is progressively allocated to solutions that are verifiably superior, driving higher returns. And in this way, we can copy the ways that tech innovation has deployed capital to generate rapid and useful changes in priorities. Second of my list of necessary success factors is empowerment. And in general terms, we would all recognize the lack of it is a key shortcoming. Multiple layers of hierarchy, numerous stage gates in decision-making are without doubt a barrier to innovation. And this is not a unique problem to government. Most large corporations undertake periodic restructurings to try to simplify and streamline and delayer. Yet a curious feature of government is how our equivalent moves, so-called machinery of government moves, tend to be about the scope of responsibility, not our internal organizational structures. So we can and do need to bring well-winnowed innovations from frontline experience to deployment at national scale much more rapidly and dependently. We need to empower governments to do this, and that requires some structural change and deserves a bit of time just to try and describe that. First among these is refining our system of accountability to allow for bold new steps. We, I mean here the collective social we, need to permit us, and here I mean the bureaucrats us, to take useful risks. We have a powerful infrastructure to control public expenditure that holds ministers and civil servants to account. Heads of department like me are also accounting officers who are personally accountable to Parliament for what gets spent by their departments. And a month does not go by without a televised grilling before the Public Accounts Committee. I really can't recommend you watch these sessions, but I do respect and accept the value of this accountability. But not every attempt at innovation will succeed, and our accountability mechanisms need to acknowledge that. In rightly seeking to empty the bar for blobby error, the collective social we must not throw out the beautiful innovation babies that might grow into our saviours tomorrow. Another factor in empowerment, of course, is that we need the right skills to be supported and championed, and that's a theme noted in last week's GGF Digital Leaders Toolkit, which I think is being discussed later today. And as the report rightly says, we need to help our people develop skills which help us to see and grasp opportunities for innovation. And the key skills here, as we all recognise, I'm sure, are in digital and data. And in a fast-changing technology environment, we all need to be adding to our know-how. In the UK, over the last 2 years, we've pioneered data and innovation masterclasses. And last year, the UK government committed to upskilling 90% of the senior civil service, that's the top 6,000 civil servants in the UK, by the year 2025. Recognising and rewarding colleagues who come up with innovations will help too. And just this Thursday, we've got the finale of this year's Civil Service Data Challenge, again supported by the Global Government Forum. And last year's winner, from over 100 entries, used AI-enhanced analysis of aerial photographs of peatland to help identify historic hidden channels that cause the peatland to dry out and release excessive CO2 into the atmosphere. Absolutely brilliant stuff, and important also for the wider signal these awards send about what gets noticed and valued. And that brings me to our third important pillar for empowering innovation, supporting this through engines to drive change. If I could just highlight two of our own in the UK, ARIA, the Advanced Research and Invention Agency, dedicated to promoting transformative technological change and paradigm-shifting scientific breakthroughs. And the new kid on the block, DCIT, the new Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. Taking these two institutions together, what stronger signal could the UK government have sent about its commitment to innovation? And of course, the last part of empowerment is to bring this all together, taking those skills and ideas, supercharging them through our innovation engines, and supporting those willing to take the risk to apply these practically in exploring new ways to improve government as a whole. So that brings me to that final critical factor, urgent and commonly recognised collective need. Obviously, we don't want to have to depend on shocks like COVID-19 for stimulus. We don't want to wait for our fiscal position to get so parlous that the stern father of invention takes the shape of cuts to the provision of collective goods. We don't want to rely on the limited ability to introduce competition in the provision of public goods, and most of them are public goods precisely because they are best served by monopoly. So where else might we find a constant and benign pressure for continuous improvement? The answer lies back with the very people that we serve. A modern system of government is one in which the everyday experience of citizens provides a constant impetus for innovation. In the words of the UK's Declaration of Government Reform, the public expects even greater ambition on the part of government to transform the country for the better. And that is why the UK government has committed in its 2025 roadmap for digital and data to taking its biggest and most essential services and moving them from good to great service levels. And we'll hear more on this later today from the Chief Executive of the UK's Central Digital and Data Office, who's speaking on the Digital Transformation Panel. It's our mission to serve the needs of citizens, our ultimate masters, and it's this mission that will drive more innovation through every part of government. And as you look at the backlogs and financial pressures acquired through COVID, the pressures building from demographic change, rising expectations of individuals and households, alarming geostrategic shifts, continuing evidence of global financial imbalances, to put it mildly, these needs are now urgent and in plain sight. Quoting again from the Declaration of Government Reform, rapid change in the world around us means we cannot afford to fail. So looking back over these criteria for innovation, we can say with full confidence that the urgent and commonly recognised collective need is present, and it's now incumbent on us to take the steps necessary to deliver on our parts of the bargain, empowering our people, investing in success, tolerating more risk-taking and delivering for citizens every bit as impressively as the tech platforms that delivered for their customers. That is the path to securing more of the innovation we need. So let me finish where I started. This is the Global Government Forum on Innovation, and innovation works best when people learn from each other and from the evidence of many different experiments. So today we'll hear dozens, if not hundreds, of such cases. And I want us to use these to inspire and guide more innovation across government and to counter the occasional skeptics, including my friend that I mentioned at the beginning, and those too impatient for quick results. We must send a message not just of hope, but of confident expectation to all the innovators across government, to our partners in the private sector, and to the public we all serve, that the best is very much still to come. Thank you very much.